just got out of the shower. I'm sitting outside because app's in, and I don't know, it's a bit weird, me talking to my phone. Alright, because it's bank holiday, so he's not at work. Alright, so this person, Ellie, writes, I have a question hoping you would address on your channel. I find the concept of anorexia being a famine migratory response so interesting and makes lots of sense. However, I was wondering what your take on the coexistence of depression, low self-worth, self-deprivation with anorexia, or really any eating disorder. You said that you were very happy in your life before you went into energy deficit and developed anorexia, but what if a person's anorexia is the product of intentional self-harm? How does this fit into the biological model? Well, first off, I do not believe that anybody's anorexia is the product of self-harm. I actually don't think that you can do that sort of self-harm. I think you have to have the genetic predisposition, and I think you have to go into energy deficit. And I don't think anybody really, like, if you're going to self-harm, there's other ways of doing it than starving yourself. I do think that people can get depression and then go into energy deficit, and then if they have the genetic predisposition for an eating disorder, then that's how they develop their eating disorder. But I do not think that maintaining anorexia is an act of intentional self-harm. I'm not sure that that's actually what you meant by that question, though. I think that you mentioned that I didn't have any sort of depression before my eating disorder, and then I did during. That's absolutely right. And as to how that fits into a biological model, well, think about it this way. Anorexia as a migration response was only ever, like, that human migration would not have lasted years and years and years. It would have lasted weeks, possibly months. But that is, like, a migration response is not supposed to last months and months or years and years, as it does when we go into anorexia without having that environmental migration need as the cause or the contributing factor. But these days, because those of us that have the anorexia genetics go into anorexia, not usually because there's a famine, at least not in the Western world, what happens is there's no natural shut-off point. There's no point where it's like you arrive and the famine's done and you can just, your whole tribe starts stuffing their face because you found the food. And so it develops, and that's where actually the neural pathways start forming, and that's where the entrenched behaviors start forming. It's when you've been doing this for any length of time. And so for most of us that develop anorexia, if you think back to those first couple of weeks when you first start restricting and you first go into energy deficit, for most of us, that time is actually pretty blissful. You've got loads of energy, you're enjoying it, the weight loss just feels natural. It just feels good. It feels natural. And then what happens is after a couple of weeks, your body starts to go like, oh, wait a minute, I can't maintain this. That's usually when the binging and purging starts, or other behaviors. And so those first couple of weeks, that was probably just about how long migration was supposed to last, just a couple of weeks. And like I said, the problem is that there's no natural shut-off now. So those of us that go into it, it doesn't just last a couple of weeks, does it? It goes on for months and sometimes years, and your body can't hack it. And that's where the depression comes from. Like, biologically, depression is a mechanism, or one of the theories of depression. And I write about a lot of the theories of depression in Rehabilitate, Rewire, Recover. One of the theories of depression is it's a biological mechanism when basically everything is not okay, and that's your body just going like, all right, can't deal, shut down. And that makes perfect sense biologically as to why, if you have an eating disorder for more than a couple of weeks and you're in energy deficit, if you're malnutrition for more than a couple of weeks, you just start to get down and depressed. And then of course that's the biological aspects. There's psychological aspects as well, like the fact that most of us have problem connecting socially when we have an eating disorder. And so that just means that if your eating disorder's gone on months and years, you just start to feel depressed because you don't have a social circle. And so there's a lot of things that, if you think about it, if anorexia was just for migration and human migration would last a couple of weeks, it pretty much would be fine, actually. You get that like migration high, you do your migrating, and it will last a couple of weeks. You wouldn't even go into massive malnutrition, hopefully, if you've actually migrated successfully and found the food. And then you kind of get over it pretty quick. And I think that most of us who have anorexia, we sort of look back and we realize in that first couple of weeks, you could have pulled yourself out of it. If you'd have known, like I know if I'd have known what was going to happen, oh my God, I would have pulled myself out of it. But I didn't know, and I was actually quite enjoying it. And I was like, this feels great. I'm going to keep going. Oh, and then it gets entrenched, and then it's really difficult to pull yourself out of it. So just looking at it from a biological migration point of view, like, animals were not supposed to migrate for years. Humans are not supposed to migrate for years, probably not even months. And so you got that initial kind of like migration effect that anorexia would have been, and then you've got all this shit that piles on top of it when it starts to last for years and years and years. I hope that helps. Right, happy, what is it, Memorial Day in the USA, and it's May Day in England. Bank holidays all around.